how I got stronger and leaner with less exercise and why diet determines fat loss. And some of it's my own story and some of it's other research. And I'll try to keep you entertained for the next 45 minutes. Okay, so exercise. First topic of the night. What is exercise? So you look up in a dictionary, an activity carried out for a specific purpose. What specific purpose is that? Why would we exercise? I'll give you a bit of a hint. There's usually two reasons why people say they exercise. Weight loss is one. Now that's the second. So what was the other one?
Fitness.
Very good. So fitness and weight loss. I didn't know which one to put first, but anyway, you got them both. Okay, so if we exercise for weight loss, then we're looking for a decrease in body weight. But are we looking for just any body weight to lose? What sort of body weight do we want to lose? Decrease in body fat, right? And so the idea is that we go and exercise, we burn body fat, and we get fat loss. That's the idea. So if we go back 5 or 6 years, when I was a little bit younger, I was heavily into running, ultra distance running, and this was sometimes what I would run in a week. So upwards of 150 kilometers, basically half a marathon a day. Not too fast, but a lot of running. So at that point in time, I thought I was probably as fit as I've ever been in my life. For those of you who run, I could run a half marathon in just under an hour and a half. Plus, I could do 150 kilometers a week. But there's a way to measure your fitness called the VO2 max test. You might have heard of it. Basically, it is how it measures how much oxygen you can take in and then distribute to the tissues, mainly the muscles of your body. So how efficient you are at using oxygen determines your fitness. And what that test involves is they stick you on a treadmill and they take you from very low effort, from standing still basically, and in 10 to 15 minutes, you're going as hard as you absolutely can. And then the test is basically done when you quit. So at that time, in 2013, I found myself at the University of Florida in the States. And so what they stick in this room with these very smart people. Kevin there was a medical doctor and his wife, Heather, was a PhD. So, and they put all these things on your chest, as you can see, to monitor your heart because it is a stress, you are getting stressed to the max. But the main thing they also put on is this mask, as you can see, and that obviously measures the oxygen you can take in and distribute. But it also can measure what you're burning, whether you're burning sugar or you're burning fat for fuel as you're running. Okay? So that would sort of test this idea scientifically of how much body fat we can burn through exercise and through running. So, as I stand with this mask on, I'm breathing into it and it comes up on the computer screen how much fat, how much sugar I'm burning. So as the test started, and I'm not moving on a treadmill yet, but the measurement is starting to come through, it's measuring that I'm burning 100% fat and no sugar. So I'm not moving. So at that point in time, Heather sort of got these wide eyes and she goes to me, "Can we please bottle your metabolism? Because you're not moving and you're burning 100% fat." Obviously, I couldn't answer her much because I had the mask on. But anyway, we'll just go through the test. So a minute in, not moving still, I was burning 100% fat. Then I get into a slow jog. And what happens is every minute the treadmill goes up in the incline and it goes a little bit fast, and they pretty much keep doing that until you quit. So you can see they're pretty much still burning fat, but it's starting to come down a little bit as I'm moving. And it's pretty much, still 80% fat, say 20% sugar. Then as about 5 minutes into the test, say at 40% effort, it's about 75% fat and 25% sugar. So the fat's coming down a little bit, but predominantly still burning fat. Midway through, I'm sort of at a pretty good clip, running 7 minutes in, and now it's about 50% fat, 50% sugar. At 80% effort, not far off the end of the test, now it's switched over to where I'm actually burning still a lot of fat, but now I'm burning more sugar than I am fat. And right at the end, just before I quit, the computer said I was burning 100% sugar and no fat. So if we do a summary of my test, it took 12 minutes from start to finish. So from standing still to I was at a max effort, and I pretty much called the test. Remember, it was first and foremost a measure of your fitness, and they put you on this scale. So the red line there is obviously I was 40 years of age. So wherever you land, anywhere between 10 and 70, tells you which category or how good your VO2 max test was for your age. So mine came through at 70. So I couldn't be much better than that, otherwise I would have been off the charts. So I couldn't really, so the suspicion I had that I was at my peak fitness was sort of confirmed a little bit, with what I could do, and also by this test. But we started looking at exercise for weight loss because we wanted to burn body fat by doing activity, like running, like I was doing. But the test sort of showed that when I was going the hardest out, flat out running, I was burning 100% sugar. So I would not have been burning any body fat. I would have just been burning sugar. And it wouldn't really give me much fat loss if that was what I was after. On the other hand, when I wasn't moving, I was burning 100% fat. So it looks like that if you want to lose weight, don't move and you'll burn fat. So it's sort of the opposite of what we get told. Sort of begs the question then, should we exercise for weight loss? Well, it sort of comes back to answer that question, we should go back and say, it's really about what Heather said there, can we please bottle your metabolism? Because if you translate what she's saying, it really means, can we bottle your ability to burn fat? So that was at a human performance testing center. They hadn't seen that before. So the question is, what was I doing that made me able to burn 100% fat while I wasn't moving? Well, it turned out that the reason was that I've been following a low carbohydrate diet for about 6 months before that test. Okay, but how does a low carbohydrate diet make you burn fat at standing still? Okay, let me try and answer that the long way around. So 3 months after the test, I wrote an email to this guy, Jeff Bowley. He's a researcher, very smart guy, because I got wind that he was doing a study on ultra-endurance athletes that had switched from a high carbohydrate diet to a low carbohydrate diet. So I basically wrote to see if I could get into the study. So I wrote him on the 14th of March. On the 17th, he wrote me back, and they'd just finished with all the low carb, unfortunately, but they were now starting to test the high carb athletes. So anyway, 2 years later, March 16, the study came out, and you can actually find this, it's free available on the internet in a journal called Metabolism. So what they did, they actually took 20 ultra marathoners or Ironman distance triathletes, all in that category. And the main gist of it was that they had them run for 3 hours at a steady state run to measure what they were burning for fuel. So they had these two groups. We'll go through the stats in a minute, but they were pretty evenly matched for age, height, body mass, body fat, fat mass. And as you can see at the bottom there, they were all, when you worked out the average VO2 max, they were pretty much the same. So they couldn't get two groups of clones, obviously, but this is as close as you could get. It was very well done. So the only reason you could say really was their diet was the main difference. Okay, they were all at the same level of performance, but they just had the huge difference in their diets. So they obviously got their VO2 max test similar to what I had to work that out. And then they had them do this 3-hour run at 64% of their VO2 max because that is determined to be the maximum fat burning zone. So where we all should be burning the most amount of fat is if we work our VO2 max and then we get up to the effort of 64%. And then obviously they had the mask on there so they could measure what fuel they were using, whether they were using sugar or fat. So we took the high carb group. You can see there that they actually burned quite a bit of fat. So when they started, when they're standing still on the treadmill, they were burning 45% fat and 55% sugar. And then as that run got to the 3 hours, they're actually burning more and more fat. So they were very good fat burners, even though they were eating high carb. So if you look that up there, not moving, they're burning 45% fat. And then as they got into the run, they're burning 60%. If we then take the low carb group, who are eating more fat and less carbs, they pretty much started out burning 85% fat, and that's where they stayed. Okay, it looks like they got to about 90% at one point, but they were pretty much burning the same amount of percentage of fat and sugar, whether they were moving or not. Obviously, they're burning more calories as they're running, but the ratio is the same. So again, if we just go through the metrics of how, I said it was pretty much two groups of clones. They were pretty much for almost equal age, equal height and weight, almost equal body composition, but that's a little bit interesting because you can see there that the high carb group had a higher fat mass and a lower lean mass weight, whereas the low carb group had less fat mass and a bit more lean mass. But pretty evenly matched, never the same. They had about the same fitness, but they had different diets. That was the main difference. So really what that study showed that whatever you eat is what you're going to burn mainly. So because fat or sugar is pretty much the two fuel sources we use. And so what they showed there, that whatever you ate was what you burned. So if you ate more carb and less fat, even though these were good fat burners, they still burned a big proportion of the energy as sugar. Whereas the ones who ate more fat and less carb, it was more prominent that they, it was 85%, so it's the majority. So in summary, if you eat carbs, you're going to burn mainly carbs for energy. If you eat fat, you're going to burn mainly fat. That's what that study sort of in a nutshell showed. So, but the question is, we sort of said, well, will you actually then also start burning your own body fat? Well, let's find out. So welcome to my life as a human guinea pig. Because when I was in Florida, they also did a body composition test on me. And at the time, I was just under 66 kilos. I had a fat-free mass of 54.8, which is your organs, bones, muscle, and connective tissue. Pretty much anything except fat. And I had 11 kilos of fat on me. And that worked out to a body fat percentage of 16.7. And if you put that on a scale, this is what's normal for the average population. And it's sort of divided into the low end, average, and the high end. So if the whole population falls somewhere within those two green lines, I was right at the low end, so I was fairly lean. And so I should have been running 150 kilometers a week. 2 years later, here in Adelaide, I had a DEXA scan, and I was pretty much the same, 60.5, so not much difference. In July that same year, I had another DEXA scan, and it was down just a couple of percent. 1 year later, it had dropped off quite a bit to 12%. And then I continued to have these scans roughly every 6 months. So I went up a little bit there, January 18, August 18, pretty much still the same. And then October, it was back down to 12. Start of this year, it was still at 12. And in May this year, it was still at 12. So it sort of seemed to stabilize at that lower level of 12%. So pretty much what happened in 5 years, I dropped from just under 17% body fat to 12. And if we look at the fat mass, we said I had 11 kilos when I started. And if you put just the fat mass on a scale, that dropped down to 7.6 kilos. So I lost just under 3.5 kilos of fat. And pretty much what I did was I stayed on the diet of more fat and less carb the whole time. Okay. So it does look like that if you eat fat, you'll actually lose your own body fat as well. So what does it actually look like to eat more fat and less carb versus more carb and less fat? I know most of you probably here already know that. But if we line up sort of fairly similar meals with similar ingredients, you can see there you'd start off with 100 grams of, T-bone steak for the high carb and a bit more for the low carb. You'd have more vegetable, twice the amount of broccoli if you're on the higher carb. You'd have 4 times the amount of potato. And you'd have a bit of rice there to get in that higher carb, whereas on the low carb, you're trying to restrict that. So then you have something like pure fat form of olive oil. Okay, so that could be you get these 2 meals I worked out, they're about the same amount of calories. So you're just getting your energy from different sources. Okay. Or if you prefer chicken, then you can start out with 90 grams each. You both have a 300 gram green salad. But then to get your carbs up, if you're high carb, you need a fair bit of rice, for instance. Whereas you don't really want many more carbs than the low carb, you just have a little bit. So you have 5 grams of olive oil, whereas you're looking for the fat in the high carb, high fat, and you have more olive oil, which is pure fat. Okay. So you can have the same ingredients, but different ratios, depending on where you want your energy to come from. So how do you work this out if you want to do that? I didn't just do that in my head. You can just go on to what is called Chronometer, the free app to work it out. So you can just see there, you punch in all your different foods, and that gives you the breakdown of how much fat and carbs. Okay. But there's a little bit of a twist to this story, because at that same time, just after that VO2 max test, I pretty much stopped running. So I dropped this body fat with less exercise. So I wasn't running 150 kilometers a week. I stopped completely. So again, we go back to exercise. Doesn't look like it's that important for weight loss. But if you are going to exercise, take note of what you're eating if you're after weight loss. Okay? So that's actually what determines what you're going to burn. But why then exercise? If it's not important for weight loss, why should we do it? Well, it goes back to the other purpose, which was fitness, right? That would be a pretty good reason. But what is fitness? What is it? What is it we're trying to do? Anyway, when I'm in doubt, I go to the dictionary. So the quality of being suitable to fulfill a particular role or task. So that could be as simple as if you're into bike riding, you want to ride for longer, you're into lifting weights, you want to lift more weight, or you want to run faster. Or it could be as simple as whatever you do throughout your day, carry the groceries, play with your kids, if you're a builder, gardening, clean, whatever you need to do is really your fitness, be able to fulfill that task. So we carry out exercise, a specific activity, to get fitter at whatever we need to do on a daily basis. Does that make sense? But what sort of activities are the most efficient to do that? So in my opinion, there's two. The first one is strengthening. Why would we want to do strengthening? Well, it's to maintain the tissue's strength and mass. And your muscles, obviously, obvious one. But what other tissues would we want to strengthen? Keep strong. What's that? Yep, so that's part of the muscle. But what other structural tissues?
Bone.
Bone? Very good, you got that. What else than bone would be good? Tendons? Yep. You gonna get the last one?
Ligaments.
That's it. Okay. So that's what you remember. I had that fat-free mass. That's pretty much all those. So whatever's not fat. Obviously, you can't strengthen your organs through exercise, but all the things that hold you together. So why would we want to do that? Why would we want to keep these strong? Why wouldn't we want weak muscles? Maybe so we didn't get muscle damage, so when we go and do our activities, say a torn muscle. But that could also just be gardening. So you want to keep your muscles strong. You could be carrying a child, you get have a weak muscle, and that tears. Tendon damage, running, or gardening. And I think we all know somebody who's torn a ACL in the knee, which you could incur doing these activities, or even bone fractures. So that's the reason to keep those tissues strong. And we've probably all been part of moving a fridge in the past, so we probably know if we're going to do that, two people do it just the correct way. But there are some people that attempt this. So if you attempt this sort of thing, you're probably in danger for tearing or breaking anything. So there's another good, if you are going to carry a fridge on your back, make sure your body can take it. Okay. So maintain tissue strength. But what about mass? So this is pretty much what loss of muscle tissue looks like. But if we keep strengthening tissue, we're going to prevent that loss. Now there's a name for when you lose muscle tissue. Does anybody know what it is?
Sarcopenia.
Yes, very good. Thanks, Karen. So sarcopenia is the loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength as a result of aging. So it's going to come. It's coming from the day you're born, basically. Let's say early 20s, it's all downhill. It also, strengthening your tissues also prevents the loss of bone tissue mass. There's also a name for that. Osteoporosis. I wasn't going to give up on that one. So a medical condition in which the bones become brittle and fragile from loss of tissue. So we have this loss of tissue as we age. But strength training prevents loss of bone mass and prevents loss of muscle mass. Or does it? How do we know? Once again, let's find out. And welcome back to my life as a human guinea pig. So remember in the body composition test, it tested my fat-free mass, which includes my bone and muscle. And when I stopped running at the age of 40, I had 54.8 kilos of fat-free mass. Then I stopped running. I started strength training. And then after 2 years, I'd increased my fat-free mass just under 2 kilos. Then it dropped down again, and then it stayed low there for a couple of years. And then it started coming back up about a year ago. And that's pretty much where it stayed to this day. So it's a little bit higher than when I stopped running, but I've pretty much, roughly, been able to maintain my fat-free mass, so which includes my bones and my muscles, by doing strength training. So it does seem like strength training prevents loss of bone and muscle, at least in my little experiment. But what about from here on in? So I'm 46 now. So what about beyond that? Is it possible to keep maintaining that through training? Well, if we look at a normal curve for men and women, this is what you call an aging curve for your fat-free mass. So it's pretty much there when you're in your 20s, you're at the peak, and then it's a pretty rapid decline from there on in. Women have obviously a little bit lower fat-free mass, but you hold on to it a lot longer. Whereas men, we just start dropping off from early 20s. And this is what we consider normal. Okay, so again, this is like the fat mass across the population, which usually goes up. This one goes the other way with age. So let's have a look at what normal looks like at different stages of life. So this is a cross-section of a leg of a 21-year-old male. You can see there the fat, the muscle, and the bone. We stick him on the scale. That's what a normal 21-year-old would look like. We then jump to a 63-year-old normal. You can see how the muscle mass has shrunk, and there's now more fat mass, and he'd fit on the scale about there. So you've had that slow decline over the last 40 years. And then a 74-year-old normal, you can see how it's shrunk even further, the lean mass, even the bone, and he'd be about there. So that's what sort of normal looks like. But what is normal? What is it that we define as normal? Normal is sedentary. Maybe we should say it's common. It's not normal, but that's what this is measured on. That's what happens if you do nothing. Okay, you got that slow decline. How does that look to you? Normal look. Doesn't look good, does it? So what we really want to do, we want to try and push that line up and hold on to that lean mass for longer. But is this possible? Well, I saw I could do it for 5 years, from 40 to 45, but what about beyond that? Well, let's find out. If we take a 21-year-old sedentary male, plot him on the graph, but then we take a 40-year-old who's been active. You can see the difference there. And we plot him on the graph. He's actually got more muscle mass than a 21-year-old who's been active. So it does look like you can hold on to it or even increase it as you age. Because if we then jump to a 70-year-old active male, you can see he's probably almost even leaner than the 40-year-old, and at least as much muscle mass. So I've actually drawn that line upwards a bit. So it looks like you can actually sort of bend this, what we call the aging curve, and go the other way if you look after yourself. It's pretty encouraging. But if sedentary is normal, what is it to be active these days? What's the opposite of normal? I know you guys aren't normal, so what are you?
Abnormal.
You're abnormal. Because you're active. So which would you rather be, normal or abnormal? I'd say be a bit abnormal. Okay. Now, our 40-year-old and 70-year-old, they were actually triathletes. So, for those of you who don't know, I think so most of you do, that's a contest where you swim, cycle, and do long distance running. But if you don't want to do that, and you still want to look after your lean mass, then I suggest you can just do strength training. Seems to work as well. The question is though, how much do you need to do? How much do I do? Well, this is how. Do this lift once a week. And you're done. Okay? Lift from your knees up till your legs are roughly straight, and that's it. But don't take my word for it. We'll do a case study number one of my clients. This is Mel. She just got married recently. So she sent me her wedding photo. But Mel started training with me pretty much 6 months to the day. And this is her doing the same lift. Just lifting the bar. You've seen the machine in my gym. From the knees and then straightening up. She's at 21 sessions total. So she's been coming an average of every 8 or 9 days. So this is what Mel started at lifting. She could lift 40 kilos twice on the first day she came. Then she came a few days later and we load a bit more on the bar. She lifted 45 kilos twice. And we just kept increasing the weight on that bar pretty much every time she came. And this is what it sort of looked like over the course of 6 months. Just a few kilos more. And just the other day, she pretty much doubled her strength in 6 months. Okay. Now she's warming up with more than she could lift when she walked in. And remember, that's just 21 sessions. A bit less than once a week, actually. But we don't just do that. We also do these 4 exercises because we want to make sure we work the entire musculature of the body. So here's Mel doing 3 of those. So we do the chest press, which works your arms and the front of your body. The leg presses of your legs and the shoulders. So what we do, we just do 1 set of each of those exercises to fatigue. It takes about 2 minutes. So I'm just going to show you a set that Mel did not long ago. Okay, so when you're ready, gradual upload and away we go. Stop. Very good. Very good. Nice. Just elbows down a little bit. Just elbows down a fraction. Yeah, not too. Yeah, that's good. Slowly keep breathing. That's it. Ready and turn. Push. Stop. Very good. That's it. Keep breathing like that. Good. Very good. Very good. Slowly now. Slowly. Ready. Turn. Push. Stop. Very good. Good man. Very good. Slow down. That's it. Nice. Very nice. Ready and turn. Push. Stop. Very good. Slowly now. Very good. Slowly. Control it and turn. Push. Just a sticky point. Keep pushing. Push. Keep pushing. Push. Stop. Slowly. Ready and turn. Push. Keep pushing. Just keep pushing. Keep breathing. Very good. That's it. Keep pushing. Keep breathing. Very good. Keep pushing. Keep resisting. Keep resisting hard as you can. Keep resisting. Keep breathing. And that way. Very good. Very nice.
That was heavy.
So that's it. Those 4 exercises, just under 2 minutes each, plus the lift. Because if you do 1 set to fatigue, 2 minutes is sufficient for strengthening. So when it comes to strengthening, training to fatigue develops good strength. And one of the most efficient ways to do it. As you can see, you don't need a lot of time, which is why we can get Mel's workout done in just 30 minutes once a week all up. And a lot of that is resting in between a little bit and talking. Okay. But I have a few people that tell me, look, I don't want to bulk up. Don't worry, you won't. Okay? I didn't turn into the Hulk. In fact, you can see I put on about not even a kilo. So if you're over 21, you want to be worried about holding on to what you got. Don't worry about getting too big. Because unless you got the genes of the Hulk, you probably won't. But just like Mel, you will get stronger. And I'll just show you what, I'm not a big guy, but I'll show you exactly the level I've got to with this little bit of training. So that there was 190 kilos when I weighed 63 kilos. So pretty much 3 times my own body weight. So it's just to show you that, look, first of all, it doesn't take a lot, but your strength will increase a hell of a lot. Okay? And the good thing about, if you don't want to go and get scans to see whether you're losing bone and muscle, your strength is a good measure of whether that's staying with you. Because your strength is going to go before your mass goes. So just look after your strength and you know your muscle and your bones are okay. So, another thing I don't do here with my clients, I don't weigh people. The results we look for is just strength, but Mel does seem to get some shrinkage. So what do I mean by shrinkage? Well, I send these texts to her, usually the day after, how you feeling? Okay, I'm a bit sore, any particular part, mostly around the shoulders, just so I know what's going on. But then sometimes she'll write this back. By the way, today I'm wearing a dress I bought 10 years ago and have been able to fit for at least 5 years. So you'll get strength and you'll probably get some shrinkage. But the reason we don't weigh is because often I found your weight can pretty much flatline if you're trying to lose weight, but you're shrinking. Because if you're maintaining or building lean mass at the same rate as you're losing fat mass, well, looking on the scales, you won't see any difference, and that's very discouraging. So it's a much better way to look for shrinkage. Okay, see how your clothes fits and how you're feeling. Has to be said though that Mel also follows, she eats more fat and less carbs. So this is some of the meals she sends some photos to me sometimes. So she has salmon and eggs, or I think she went out for breakfast there. Or she might even just have a steak. Okay, so right in line with how you guys are eating. Only every now and again will I weigh somebody, depending on who they are, if they come to me for specific reasons. So Raquel, who's a jockey, she's case study number 2. And when you're a jockey, the horse you're riding, each weight has an allocated weight, which includes the jockey and all the gear. So Raquel had a 52 kilo race coming up, or she had to make 52 kilos, which she'd never done before. And she asked whether I could help. So I said, well, we'll give it a go. So she came to me on the 8th and her weight was 54.6. She needed to lose 2.6 kilos in 9 days. Okay, so you say, well, 2.5 kilos, that's not a big deal. Well, when you're quite small to start with, 2.6 can be a big deal, and she was by no means overweight. Okay, so we started Raquel here, so at 54.6. In 2 days, we dropped her down a kilo, so it was looking good. Then we sort of stayed there for about 3 days. Then we started dropping down again, dropped down again. And we had a bit of a mishap, what I'll tell you about in a minute. But then we dropped down again, and on race day, we were 52.7 early in the morning. But by that afternoon, she had to ride, we were 52 because she just spent an hour in the sauna. Okay? But there's a big difference between losing 700 grams in the sauna and then losing 2 kilos. Okay? And it was a fairy tale ending because she won the race.
Trying to reel them in. Here's Darlasan looming up the scales of justice. Oh, it's the Colt. It's Darlasan. How impressive is he? He drew clear. That's special. He won by a length and a half.
It was a terrific effort from yourself as well. You've got to take part because you had to lose a little bit of weight to take the ride.
Yeah, I did. Look, you know, in life you got to make sacrifices, and they've got to be for the right thing, and that was definitely for the right thing today.
Well,
How did she do it? Steps to weight cutting, because what we're actually doing, we're really cutting weight. Okay. So we cut out the carbs and restricted her food slightly. And this is what I had her eating on the day after she saw me. So we had a lot of fat, almost no carbs, and a little bit of protein. This is what her meal looked like. Raw egg yolks, beef mince from Coles, some broth, and some pure fat. And then we had her on the liver supplement, liver and kelp as well. So what happens then is that the body will start burning glycogen and hopefully switch to fat burning. So what is glycogen? Well, glycogen is the stored sugar you can store in your liver and your muscle cells. So this is pretty much the blueprint I gave Raquel for how it works, so she could understand where this cut weight comes from. So you know when people say, well, you may have lost water weight, this is a lot what we're talking about. Because to store, you can see there, to store 600 grams of glycogen in your liver, only 100 of that is sugar and the other 500 is water. Okay, so when you say you can store 100 grams of sugar, yeah, that's true, but it's diluted by water. Okay, and then you can store up to 2.5 kilos in your muscles. This is obviously depending on body size, but it gives you around about that 3 kilos to play with. So if you can drain that, which was the idea of Raquel, then I could get it to 52.5. Okay? So you cut the carbs, start burning glycogen, and because you're plowing through this, burning through that glycogen, you're hopefully starting to burn some fat as well. So then what you do, you keep the food slightly restricted to keep burning glycogen and also body fat when that glycogen gets really low. That usually happens in about that 48 hours to 3 days. So on race day, we allowed a little bit of sugar in the form of Snickers. And it has to be said that when Raquel came to me, I haven't shown it tonight, but we tested her ketones and she was already in what you call ketosis, which shows that she was already eating low carb and switching to high fat burning state when she wasn't eating. So you start off in a good place. You just need a little bit of help. So this is what the calories she ate. So she wasn't eating a lot of food, but she's had 1,500 calories that day, which is a pretty normal meal. But then we dropped down and sort of maintained under that 1,000 calories. She would have, her meals would be something like a couple of eggs, some salmon, some fat. So still eating quite a bit of fat. But all through this, she said she wasn't really hungry. And then we had another race day. And she overdid the carbs a little bit because, as you might remember, her weight was going pretty good, right? So the first day she didn't have much. Second day, she had more carbs, and what happened? Her weight shot back up 0.5 kilo the next day. So what happened there was pretty much that with more carbs than planned, her glycogen got topped back up. That requires water. And she was just, I was more thirsty, which falls hand in hand with the theory. But never mind, we kept on a pretty restricted diet the next 2 days. And she had no food on race day, and as you know, she made the weight. So just after the race, I obviously sent a text of congratulations and said thank you. I felt so good all day. But that's a little bit puzzling to people when telling about that story, because how can you feel great all day on no food? And the race she won was one of the last races. She had probably 4 to 6 races before that on no food. Yet she felt great all day. She said she probably never felt better. Probably helped to get that big win, but nevertheless, physically, she was able to do it. So it's probably very similar to our ultra-endurance athletes. One was running on carbs, one group was running on fat. And that day, Raquel was pretty much running on fat. But because she really didn't have much food in the days leading up to it, she was probably tapping into her own body fat. And it goes to show even a lean person has more than enough body fat to last a long time. Okay? But you've got to get your body to that stage to make it efficiently. So whatever you eat is what you're going to burn, whether you're an ultra-distance runner or you're a jockey. Seems to work in both cases. And to summary of what happened to Raquel, she needed to lose that 2.6 in 9 days, and it was 100% diet intervention. Didn't have her doing any more exercise. Okay, she came for a couple of strength training sessions, but for the same reasons as we went through before. But to make this happen, it was 100% diet. Okay. Anyway, let's go back to fitness. So it can be fitness, can be whatever you need to do. Bike rider, jockey or runner, or just doing your chores, playing with the kids or gardening. But does being a good parent make you fit for being good at gardening? No, it doesn't. Does being good at gardening make you fit for being good parenting, playing with your kids? No, it doesn't sort of translate. So you could say, in a way, fitness is very personal. What you need to be fit for is depending on what you like to do. So what's activity number 2 to be good at what? So you got your body strong through strength training. What else do you need to do to be good at what you do? You need to practice what? Your skill. Right? You might get stronger in strength training, but it's not going to do much for your skill. So a skill is a particular ability or expertise, and sport is obviously an easy one to describe that. If you're a golfer, runner, or tennis player, it takes timing, coordination, and balance. That's what we're more looking at when we look for skill. Or even, having the kids hang off your arms, being a jockey, doing gardening, all takes those 3 things. In fact, in anything we do. So my personal fitness is I like to practice the handstand. And if you break that up, so the start of it is more the timing. You do a kick-off, you're trying to kick up. So that's more the timing part. Then you're trying to coordinate your movement through the air until you balance at the end. Okay, so that's sort of if you break it down, a skill into those 3 things. But that skill, I'll say handstand, that sort of requires a foundation of what?
Strength.
Colour's a bit of a dead giveaway, isn't it? Yeah. That you've got a strong muscle, bone, tendon, ligament to start with. So whatever skill we want to be good at, they also require that strength. So, if you're feeling energized, practicing your running skill, how's your timing going to be, good or bad? It's going to be pretty good. What about if you're feeling fatigued while you're running? How's your timing going to be? It's going to suck, right? So, what about your coordination when you're feeling good? It's going to be pretty good. What about if you're feeling fatigued? Might fall over. And finally, your balance. It's probably going to be pretty good if you're feeling good. And your balance is probably going to suck if you're fatigued as well. So the moral of the story is, if you're feeling fatigued, you're practicing bad skill and you're probably getting worse, right? Because it's more about timing, coordination, balance, and you want to practice those when you're able to practice them well. Whereas when you're feeling energized, you're practicing good skill and you're probably getting better. So, training energized develops good skill, training fatigue develops bad skill. But that's the opposite of what I just showed you with strength, where we actually train to fatigue. Which is why we have these separate. So to practice strength, you want to get fatigued because that develops good strength. And if you want good skill, you want to be energized. Does that make sense? So to break that up, sum that up, this is why I reckon there's two components to fitness and you have to separate them. And again, strength and skill is like this personal fitness because it really depends on what you do. So you can all do the same strength training, but then you need to go and practice whatever skill to really develop your fitness. Any questions so far? Okay, so a quick summary of what we went through tonight. I sort of tried to shed a bit of light on a few topics. So weight loss, we have the idea that exercise burns body fat and that's how we lose weight. But that might actually be misguided. And the opposite might in fact be true, providing you eat a diet which allows your body to burn fat. And if you do that, it's my hope that people start asking you, can we beat body or ability to burn fat? So that was sort of shedding a little bit of light on weight loss, if that's what you're interested in. And then to sum up why we exercise, which we say is an activity for a specific purpose, it really is to achieve this goal of personal fitness, whatever that might be to you. Okay? And to achieve that goal of personal fitness requires strength and it requires skill. The strength part is strengthening all the tissues of your body to prevent damage and also to hold on to your muscles and bones as you age. And strength, we train to fatigue. And then the other part, skill, which is more timing, momentum, and balance, we don't train to fatigue, but we stay energized because that's where we develop good skill. So in summary, train strength to fatigue, train skill only energized, and you'll get the personal fitness. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's little lecture. I hope you had a delicious dinner. There's more there. I hope the lecture was fairly informative. And so you can get a free strength training session. Not tonight, but you're welcome to book in for one. And that's it. Thank you.